my name is Heber Brown III. I am the host of BrothaSpeak. Hello and welcome to this, another edition of your favorite internet TV show, BrothaSpeak. I am your host. My name is Heber Brown. I appreciate you tuning in today. It's going to be a wonderful show. It's been some time since we have been on and been together, but so much has been going on in the world that it's about time for the brothers to come back to the table and to dissect and to analyze what's been going on in the nation and in the world. Of course, my brothers are here with me, no strangers to you, of course. On my left, we have Mr. Tyrone Keys. Tyrone, good to see you today.
Good to see you.
On my right, Mr. Ted Smith. Good to see you today, Ted.
Great to be here.
So much going on, and we have to start, brothers, with, of course, Hurricane Katrina. And Rita, might I add. Hurricane Katrina and Rita came through, and particularly Katrina, one of the most devastating storms in the history of the country. You've seen the images, you've read the reports, you watched on TV as mothers cried for their missing children and fathers cried over their lost wives, and you saw that. The brothers want to come together today because I really want to talk about accountability factor. And I know that's a word that scares many people. Particularly, it seemed like the Republicans were afraid to talk about accountability soon thereafter after the storm. Well, it's been some weeks rather since the storm. So let's talk about accountability. Who was ultimately at fault? We hear that it's the local government. We hear that it was the state. Some say it was the federal level. Is there an either or is it both and in the situation as far as who's to blame?
I think it's both. I think that you start at the top and you go down. And I've heard people avoid responsibility, but if you don't want the responsibility, don't sit in the chair. I think you got to start with the Bush-Cheney team. They have been at the helm of the two worst catastrophes in our nation's history. 9/11, Bush was on vacation for almost a month prior to 9/11. Where was he when Hurricane Katrina hit? He was on vacation. The Army Corps of Engineers, they were working on projects to build up the levees to prevent the flooding, because what affected people more than the hurricane itself was the flooding. But Bush cut the funding for the Army Corps of Engineers, and they were warned what would happen to the levees if above a Hurricane 3 hit. But Bush diverted a lot of these type of monies to fund the war in Iraq. And along with this and other facts, I think that they need to have oversight hearings to look into criminal negligence of the Bush-Cheney team.
So if you say that the Bush-Cheney team, needs to have these oversight hearings.
Yes.
But you didn't say anything about Ray Nagin. You didn't say anything about the governor. Are they really off the hook with you?
I think that, I wouldn't say that they're off the hook. But as I said, I think that you start at the top. I think always with leadership, it establishes the trend. Even when I just look at timelines and the state officials, even though I feel like they waited too late, but you look at the date when they called a national state of emergencies and they were calling for federal help. Where was the federal government? Why was this man on vacation when you're the governor of the state asking for help? And everyone knew. Why are you on vacation?
Tyrone, I saw pictures of buses lined up in the parking lot that could have been used to evacuate some of the less fortunate, the poorer persons there in New Orleans particularly. But, and Ray Nagin, I believe, had the authority to get these people on buses and get them out somewhere. Now, to where, that's another question. Are black folks, scared to charge another brother, Ray Nagin, with any type of blame for the situation?
I don't think so. I think that, and this is a BrothaSpeak moment, so the viewers might want to hit record. I'm going to actually agree with a lot of what Ted said. I agree that, we have weather forecasts. We could actually see this thing coming. We knew kind of what to expect if it hit New Orleans. And I think at that point, the president should have cut his vacation short and come back to the symbolic nerve center of the country, the White House, and been ready to deal with the situation. Ted is right. It's a leadership issue. The president made quite a few mistakes in this, in my opinion, flying over the devastation. While I understand that would have given him a total picture of the destruction, what should have followed that was him getting in a helicopter and getting as close to the devastated area as possible and putting his feet on the ground. If you remember back during the 3 Mile Island incident when Jimmy Carter was president, it was unclear as to whether or not the area around 3 Mile Island was safe to be in, yet Jimmy Carter and his wife got out of the limousine and were there, and it kind of put the country at ease. This is like presidency 101, and I think Bush failed at that. He definitely dropped the ball on Katrina. And I would say that if there is percentages of blame to be assigned, then I would give him the lion's share of it, simply because you are the leader of the United States of America, and Louisiana is a part of the United States of America. From there, I'll put a lot of blame on Governor Blanco, because she obviously failed to call in the necessary amounts of troops at the appropriate time. If you don't need them, fine. But better to not need them than to find out you do and don't have them. And then I think that, you know, as far as Ray Nagin is concerned, Ray Nagin doesn't have the authority to call out any troops. Yes, he did have the buses there. Is that a situation that they'd ever dealt with before? No. Could it have been done better? Yes. But I don't, if there, again, is percentages of blame to be assigned, I actually would assign Ray Nagin the least amount of blame in this, for what he did with regard to the hurricane and the initial aftermath.
Ted, to Bush's credit, and not to say that this gets him completely off the hook, but did not he, you know, take responsibility? Didn't he apologize on some level, or say, you know, this was, you know, I take blame for the federal government's part?
Let me say one positive thing about Bush, especially when comparing his response to Mike Brown, the FEMA chief, ousted chief.
Right.
I definitely like Bush's response compared to Michael Brown, who didn't seem to me to show any type of remorse or any type of. So I like it compared to him, but I still think there are too many lives lost just to say I'm sorry. Okay, I'm running, you know, if I'm running a facility, I'm running a youth center, lives are lost, I can't just say I'm sorry. I appreciate the fact that you're sorry, but we need to conduct some hearings so that there's some measure of accountability, so that justice is served.
Now I think that we do need to hold hearings. I definitely think that we do, because we need to find out where the system broke down. I think it obviously shows that we're not ready for certain types of things. I mean, this hurricane could have very well been, you know, some release of some toxic agent that, you know, killed hundreds of thousands of people. We're obviously not ready. All this Homeland Defense stuff that we've been touting over the past few years, this proves that we still have a long way to go. So I think the hearings will come in handy and show us what we have left to improve. As far as the FEMA chief is concerned, his response from the beginning of the crisis to his testimony before Congress this week has just been inadequate. You watched a lot of, I'm sure you watched a lot of the news footage with him as the head of FEMA during the disaster, and it just didn't seem like he was prepared for the position at all. He had no tact. He seemed to be bothered by a lot of the questions that the reporters were asking him. So this guy was obviously the wrong guy in the wrong position at the time.
But it goes even worse than that. This person's position, he was a horse breeder prior to, that was his expertise.
Did he go to college with Bush or something?
Breeding.
No, he was a donator.
Right, big donor and campaign. 5 of the top 8 FEMA positions. The only reason why many of those people have the position, they had no experience, was because they gave a lot to President Bush's campaign.
And that's a point.
And that's a problem.
That's a point that is a problem, and I think that's a point that needs to be blown up in front of the media and really examined. Okay, if I'm a big donor, then maybe I do deserve ambassadorship to the Bahamas or something.
Right.
But FEMA is a very sensitive area of the government, especially post-2001,
Definitely.
September 11, 2001. So you don't put big-time political donators in a position like that. It would be the same thing if I donated $1 million to the Bush administration, and I take the FEMA head as equivalent to like the head of maybe the Department of Defense or Justice, and I have no background in law enforcement or the military. So appointing me to any position in that realm would be just preposterous based on, just based on the amount of money I gave. So I think that does need to be examined, and we need to, get people's resumes out in front of the public, because after all, that's who they're working for, prior to finding out that your FEMA director is a horse breeder who, from all accounts, wasn't too good at that. So,
but okay, that's what they need to be doing. But realistically, brothers, do you think an oversight hearing or anything like that will really happen? Do you think realistically they're going to agree to? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a suggestion to do that after 9/11, to do some type of hearing, and Bush would only do it, I think, with a closed door hearing?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, though, I still, with the lack of that, blame us, the people.
Okay.
The government we have to hold our government accountable. They didn't do what they did because we didn't hold them accountable. So the question is, what are we willing to do to hold them accountable?
right, and the way you hold government accountable is you do not keep voting in the same group of individuals that presided over the last 12 failures. But, we continue to do that. We see an Elijah Cummings sign and we just automatically, without thinking of it, we don't even look at his opponent's, platform. We just vote, and I'm using Elijah Cummings because everybody knows Elijah Cummings, and everybody is familiar with the fact that he's been involved in government for a long time. But it could be any such incumbent elected official. So you're right. We need to start to hold the elected officials accountable by voting them out if they're not working for us. And before we go too far into, I think there's enough blame to be spread around here, and some for this disaster needs to fall on the shoulders of the Congressional Black Caucus and the NAACP.
Oh man!
Because
what percentage? Let me just ask you before you go on. What percentage compared to the others?
Well, I think again the highest percentage of blame needs to fall on the government leadership, who has the infrastructure and the equipment to bail people out. So NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus don't control Humvees and helicopters. So obviously there's a limited role they can play. But prior to the disaster, their ability to uplift their constituency out of the state of poverty in which they can't afford an automobile to leave the area, then yes, I think we need to look at what are they doing. Now, they just held a heck of a party down in D.C. last week.
Jamie Foxx was there.
Dressed up and had a good old time. But, and I'm sure some words were said about, we got to help the Katrina victims, and, Bush is evil. But they've got to also, I think we have to hold them accountable also. What have they ever done?
I guess the way I look at it is that what happens in the black community and even amongst our leadership is a microcosm of the entire American community. We just have major corruption within leadership. We have corruption within larger government's leadership, and we have corruption within black leadership. It seems to me to be the same thing. And I pretty much agree with you. I mean, because
the CBC and NAACP can't say, we didn't know anything was going on.
J.C. Watts summed it up. He said that race hustling poverty pimps, and I agree.
Wow.
Yeah.
So our large because I feel like that black folk like to give NAACP, CBC like to give them a pass because they black.
Right.
I mean, and I can't say I've never had those feelings when I see a competitor on TV and it's a black athlete versus an athlete of another racial descent. I'm not gonna lie on BrothaSpeak. I'm pulling for the brother. If it's the price is right and the price is right and Bob Barker's on there and there's a black contestant and everybody else, I'm pulling for.
Man, listen, that's all of us. I think I can remember as a child watching The Price is Right with my grandmother, and the black contestant comes down and hey, it's all about that black contestant, and
the weight of our people.
Right. So I think that you're absolutely right, but we've got. This is not. We do need to learn how to separate. This is more serious, far more serious than The Price is Right or any athletic event. There is a crisis of leadership throughout the Congress, throughout the executive branch. There's a crisis of leadership, and it pays no attention to color line. Dennis Hastert, for example, he didn't even come back to vote on the appropriation to give the initial round of funding to the hurricane victims. He didn't even come back to vote for that. He said that he had a fundraiser he had to attend.
Right.
So he didn't. He cared more about, and this seems to violate the oath he took.
Right.
To first care for the American people.
Right.
He didn't even care enough to come back and symbolically vote. Because it passed overwhelmingly.
Right.
To vote in favor of this appropriation. He stayed and had his fun.
But he's allowed. We got to wrap up. Time to get out of here. But he's allowed to do that. I go back to your point. He's allowed to do that because he has no fear of reprisal from the American citizens, regular folk like like me, like the brothers. When politicians don't fear that, they can do whatever they want to do.
That's right.
They can do whatever they want to do. This has been a great discussion, and our prayers still go out to those who've been adversely impacted by Hurricane Katrina and Rita, and we are certainly praying for those, especially when I see the children who are missing and parents who are trying to find. That's still going on. It's not on the major headlines now anymore. Other things are beginning to take over. But our prayers here at BrothaSpeak and at blacktvonline.com still go out to those who have been impacted by Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. Next week, check us out because we're going to talk about the black church. Y'all know I love talking about the black church on BrothaSpeak. And I've been noticing some very strange things going on with some of our national black preachers and these televangelists out there. I kind of want to talk about that next on the next show of BrothaSpeak. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your loved ones about blacktvonline.com. Tell them to tune in to BrothaSpeak. I'm your host, Heber Brown. Thank you so much. See you next week.